Hi everyone, I am here with another true story. Okay, this one, let's see. This one is called When God Smiles. Danielle loved smiley faces. She'd stick them up around her room, send them in greeting cards, draw them on correspondence, a round face with two eyes and a smile. They matched her personality, and her father Daniel heard. A musically gifted, nearly 19-year-old, she was about to journey to Los Angeles from her home in Michigan to meet with record producers who thought her songs she'd composed, more than 20, might have commercial appeal. Then the tragedy happened. A car out of control, a head-on collision. She died. We simply cannot fathom the pain borne by her grieving parents and Danielle's two older sisters. Life does not prepare us for that kind of heartbreak. 9 months later, her father was still feeling agonizing loss. Danielle stood alone on the rear deck of their home, her dad. Daniel stood alone on the rear deck of their home, looking off into the woods. It was a dark night. Black clouds filled the sky. Oh God, this still hurts. Dear God, please give me a sign that Danielle is okay, that she's with you, he wailed. Then bowing his head, his voice crackling with sorrow, he said, I guess I'm not worthy. A glimmer of light reflected from the deck. He looked up to see a wondrous sight. A hole had formed in the blackness of the sky, just enough for the full moon to fit perfectly into it. He stared, recognizing the craters near the top that looked like the eyes of the man in the moon. Then in slow motion, across the bottom of the moon, a narrow dark cloud drifted and stopped and turned up its corners. In a direct personal communication, Daniel was receiving a God wink. She made a smile in the night sky for him. For a full 15 or 20 seconds, the moon was a perfect smiley face, just like Danielle had always collected. I now counsel other parents who are dealing with grief, said Daniel. I tell them they should expect that their hurt, anger, and sorrow will come in waves. Some days they will be fine. Other months later, they'll break down in tears. We know how that is. Losing Dottie. And occasionally, they'll get a sign, a God wink, to lift their spirits. 3 months after he witnessed a smiley face in the sky, Daniel and his wife Paula moved into their new home. For 1 year, it had been under construction, positioned on the 5-acre lot Danielle had suggested before her accident. It was cold. It was a cold Sunday afternoon. Daniel knew that before the first snowfall, he had to pick up all the scraps of wood and debris left by the electricians, contractors, and siding men. For 3 hours he labored, pushing a heavy wheelbarrow with loads of debris over the muddy terrain. All the while, Danielle was not far from his mind. Over and over again he thought about the smiley-faced moon. He was glad God had spoken to him. He now knew Danielle was okay, but he wanted to know that she was with him. His eyes moistened. A constriction grew in his throat. Out loud, all alone, he cried. For another few minutes, Daniel labored, satisfied the job was just about finished. He stood, looked around to see if there were any more scraps of wood. There was one. He went to it and squatted to pick it up. It was a piece of siding, maybe 10 inches long. He lifted it, turned it over. His eyes widened. Carved into the wood, probably by a nail, were the words, "Hi, Dad." For several moments of disbelief and absolute wonder, He stared at the God wink he held in his hands. He couldn't wait to get inside to share the story with his wife, Paula. They talked about it, about the significance of the smiley-faced moon and the scrap of sighting, both coming within moments of a plea to God for a sign of assurance that their daughter was in heaven. Paula noted that the sighting man worked with his son. Probably that's how those words, "Hi, Dad," got there. Then they looked at each other and simultaneously shrugged. So what? Whoever left that scrap of wood was a God wink link. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Psalm 35. God uses others as unwriting messengers of God winks to each of us. In fact, we all become deliverers of goodness to others without the slightest clue that God is using us that way. When someone we're thinking about telephones out of the blue, we almost never stop to ask what caused that person to call at that very moment. Or when someone you encounter changed the whole course of your life, you usually don't ask why that person was at that place at that moment. They were God wink links. In the preceding story, the important thing was not who the messenger was, but that a small scrap of wood, the last one Daniel was to pick up, carried the very personal message that God had orchestrated for him to receive. Think about the times that you were the link, the person who happened to call out of the blue just as someone was thinking about you, or you just happened to encounter someone, the result of which was an alteration to the course of their life. You were the God wink link, the unwriting messenger of God's goodness. Now that I've drawn your attention to it, feels good, doesn't it?